This is a tank everybody hates on World of Tanks, and you're about to see what the Turtle Mark 1 can do on World of Tanks. Now the Turtle here is played by Eludin X, who we will shorten to Ali in this game, and you can see here the Turtle is making his way to the top of the hill on, of course, one of my favourite maps, Malinovka, and that is because he can use the tank up by the windmill, at least hopefully, to be able to get some shots on the advancing opponents who are going to be making their way up on their side of the hill up to A0. Now if this happens, he can get into a very nice position. The tank itself as a tank destroyer has very good armour from the front. It makes it very difficult for opponents to be able to pen them unless you can get around to the side, but on World of Tanks, if you play right, you can actually avoid getting shot altogether if you do place yourself in the right area. And now what you can see him doing is just trying to progress and try and push forward with this quick fire game, and it is a quick fire game that actually ends up being probably one of the nicest Mark 1 gameplays that I've seen in a long time. Of course, it gets its name as the Turtle for being, you know, slow, and that is because this tank has a top speed, I believe, of 25 kilometers an hour, and that makes it very difficult for you to be able to push forward with any kind of real prowess or any real force, because ultimately when you're going about 20 kilometers an hour on average, because that's ultimately like the key factor of this tank, is that you are limited by whether or not the opponents are towards you, whether they're sat in front of you or not. And when you get into this sort of position where you're kind of able to not have to go forward, where you can be in a position where you can lock down things like the Chrysler K there, and also the Progetto, the Chieftain, and all of the tanks just sat in front of you, where you can block thousands and thousands of damage, where they really have no hope of being able to pen you, at least unless they go for that big chunky lower plate that you can see here. Well, I say chunky, but it is very slimline, and often you will still need premium to be able to go through it. But in this sort of scenario, he is going forward. He's going to be aggressive against this 50 TP, which of course you have to be. Once you dug him out of the way, then you can move and try and progress on the Chrysler and all of the tanks that are going to be helping out on this side for the enemy team. So once he's got rid of that 50 TP, or maybe he's been able to hit a few of these Barasks and the Chrysler, maybe if he can remove the Chrysler right here, yes he can. And that means that he's not going to have one tank shooting at him, just instead about 7. So in this scenario, he is, of course, fairly on his own. Now, he does have some teammates that are going to be behind him, but ultimately they are behind him. Takes one hit from the 50 TP, which was actually kind of unlucky, really, because from the front, this thing is almost a monster, and especially if you're face hugging, it's very difficult for opponents to really do anything about you. Now then, having removed the 50 TP and having such good armor frontally, he's able to push towards the Renegade. And if he can take the Renegade out, it pretty much is curtains for the enemy team, because once he's out of the game, then it's a case of just mopping up all of the damage that are going to be sat down on this area down here, where the ISU was spotted and the SU 1:30 PM, and if he can get into that area, maybe take out the Scorpion G, then he's going to have a field day with everyone else left in the game. Charioteer, of course, making his way into the cap circle, or towards the kind of the spawn of the team. He's making his way, but unfortunately for him, gets tracked by Ali here, and then it's all over. Now the Scorpion G is, of course, a tank that nobody really wants to face unless you're in a tank that actually can bounce rounds, and that's exactly what Ali's in. So, moving forward within this game, what has actually happened? Well, Ali's been able to secure the entire hill. He's been able to just destroy everyone that's decided that they're going to make their way up here, and he's already on 5 kills. Now, yes, the Turtle is very situational in the fact, like, you have to be able to get into a position where you can continuously fight to be able to have high damage games, but as soon as you can, or you can reliably deal damage, like as soon as you reload, you can have results like this, where quickly, and I mean quickly, you're able to rack up tons of damage, because as with all of these types of tanks, they rely heavily on the DPM, and if you can continuously keep the DPM going with a tank that reloads so quickly, then you can take out a lot of the annoying tanks that often will keep you stuck if you're playing in something that doesn't quite have the DPM that this does. Now the Hawk 30 sat out in the open, not a good position for him, and of course he's going to take a nice chunky hit from the turtle. And so if he can continuously get these rounds out, obviously firing there, managing to actually pick up the Hawk 30 blind, although not particularly too enthralled there, you know, not like it was a shot that he wasn't going to hit. But now it's come to the point where the turtle is in a bit of a dodgy scenario whereby he now needs to actually move. So, you know, what it's like when you play World of Tanks is that often when you're playing a very slow tank, it goes okay if you don't have to move, but as soon as you start having to move, your armor gets exposed to sides and people can shoot your sides, and then it becomes like, oh crap, I'm ending up losing like 30 to 40% of my hit points every single time I get hit, and then it's just curtains for you. But luckily for him, he's able to hit this Progetto and dig him out of this area, which is really annoying when opponents actually can get into that position at the beginning of the game and then just badger and spot all of the your team. And luckily he does manage to pick up probably the most dangerous tank at this point in the game, the ISU-152, although there is still an SU-130 PM and a T-28 left on the enemy team that are going to be a little bit of a struggle for Ali here, but that doesn't really matter because he has the ability to kind of bounce a few of their rounds if he positions himself in the right area, and if he picks up the Pershing who's been sat out in the open. And what you see him doing now is just backing up slightly, making sure that he doesn't kind of expose himself too much to any of the tank destroyers that could potentially get some shots into him. The Pershing is in a pretty annoying spot to be able to kind of get some shots into him, because essentially Ali would have to expose pretty much all of his tank to both the tank destroyers, which would then stomp the rest of his hit points from this area over here. And of course he's probably unlikely to actually be able to spot. Now the SU-130 on the enemy team does get spotted, which makes it very easy for Ali to put one round into him. Now it's time to go. The Pershing is out in the open, the SU's out in the open, all of the remaining hit points of the enemy tanks are kind of out and able to be hit. And now the Pershing's going to go. It's time for him to leave the game, back into the garage, and that is exactly what happens. 7,223 damage done. Although that was blind, and there may be some extra damage within this replay. However, the T-28 is left alive, albeit on 29 hit points, so it's just one shot of damage left in him. And we also have the SU-130 PM that needs to be taken out. However, he has loaded a HE round to try and deal with him. Hopefully he'll be able to connect that shot, which, you know, with this kind of tank, will be able to deal 430 average damage as opposed to the standard 330 of the standard or APCR rounds. Now then, with 7,000 damage done, you're definitely thinking this is one of the great games of playing in the Turtle. You would be correct in that assumption. And of course, most players playing in something like this would be thinking like, oh my god, I've had an outrageous game, but you've got to keep your head level, because ultimately you could still get taken out and you still have to think logically, and that is exactly what Ali does, picking up the 10th kill of the game and managing to secure 7,988 hit points worth of damage with 2,800 blocked, and a very, very good result. Of course, if you did enjoy this replay, make sure to check out the latest concept video on the channel as well, and then check out the unbelievable, and I mean absolutely unbelievable, Kranvang game. So thanks for watching. Of course, check out those videos if you're interested. Like and subscribe if you are as well. And I hope that I'll see you in one of those videos. Goodbye.